The next type of cross we're going to talk about is an incomplete dominant cross. These are very similar to complete dominant crosses. The difference is, in these cases, neither trait is dominant over the other. Okay, so in this case, as you can see in the picture, red is not dominant over white. The last type of problem that we did, you would expect to see the offspring of those flowers, the F1 generation down here, to be red, because in those cases, one of the traits was dominant over the other. But in incomplete dominance problems, the two traits come together to blend. Okay, now read the problem carefully, because you are not expected to remember or memorize the difference between the different traits. The problem will always tell you what is going on. I recommend when you make the key for these types of problems to use 2 uppercase letters. The reason why I like doing that is because it just is a visual reminder to you that neither trait is dominant over the other. So when I see the red flower, I make the genotype big R, and the white flower big W, big W. When I have the combination, the heterozygous big R, big W, I know that that's not going to be a red plant. Instead, it would be a pink. Now, the only way some people make mistakes on this is by accidentally, when they see the pink plant, introducing a third allele and saying that this would be big P, big P. Remember, at this point, we can't do that. At this point, when we're only talking about one gene, a single gene, you can only have 2 alleles. So in this case, we have red and white. Let's try a problem. In the 4 o'clock flower, like a petunia, the allele for red flowers is incompletely dominant over the allele for white flowers. So I make my key. Again, when I see the term incompletely dominant, I use 2 uppercase letters. When a red flower is crossed with a white one, an intermediate pink flower results. Show the genotypes and phenotypes of the parents and the F1 generation of a cross between a red and white 4 o'clock flower. Okay, so if I'm going to cross a red and a white, I know I have to have big R crossed with big W, big W. Now that's the genotypes of the parents. The phenotypes are red and white. And I'll label this with a P, so I remember those are my parents. If I put them in the Punnett square, big R, big W, and fill it in, these will be my F1 generation. So my F1 generation is 100% big R, big W, and 100% pink. Let's make sure I answered the whole question. Show the genotypes and phenotypes of the parents and the F1 generation. Here's my genotypes and phenotypes of my parents, my genotypes and my phenotypes of my offspring. So I'll circle that. Let's try one more problem. In guinea pigs, color of coat is determined by at least 2 alleles. Yellow coat is determined by the homozygous genotype big Y, white by the homozygous genotype big W, and the cream by the heterozygous genotype big Y, big W. Okay, so here's my key. Big Y, yellow, big W, white. The problem is telling me that this is an incomplete cross, that I have a blending of these traits. Determine the expected genotypes and phenotype ratio of the F1 generation that will result from a cross between A, 2 cream-colored guinea pigs. So I'll have YW crossed with YW, and then B, yellow and cream, big Y, crossed with big Y, big W. Okay, so at this point, I'd like you to pause the video and solve for the expected genotypes and phenotype ratios of the F1 generation, and then when you're done, unpause the video and come back and make sure you have the same answers that I did. So at this point, you should have already solved your problem. You've unpaused the video and come back. Now let's see if you get the same answers I do. Big Y, big W, big Y, big W. Okay, my genotype ratios are going to be 25% big Y, 50% big YW, 25% WW. So my phenotype ratios will be 25% yellow, 50% cream, 25% white. And I circle my answers. For B, crossing my yellow with my cream. I have my genotype as 50% YY and 50% YW because genotype is the genes or the letters. And then my phenotype is 50% yellow, 50% cream. I circle my answers.